Hello. Today I'm going to be giving you some insights into managing your property, whether you do it yourself or do you let some professionals manage it for you. At the end of the video, you'll find I'll offer you some handy hints and tips that have worked for me over the 30 years. I started off in property in the very early 90s, and in those days it was relatively different to what it is now. I let out the property and I managed it because I lived around the corner. The 80s was very different to what it is now. Regulations changed and it's a bit of a minefield. So you should always do your research before purchasing or letting out a property. These are only my experiences. It sounds obvious that managing your property yourself, you would obviously save money and make money. I think depending on the economies of scale and how many properties you've got, it might be easier at times that you need to work smarter and not harder. And as time goes by, those sorts of decisions will become evident to you anyway. I think, again, going on how many properties you've got as being a determining factor whether you use an agency or do it yourself. The other things to consider are, where do you live? How long will it take you to get to the property? Is it within your 20-minute desired travelling time? Have you got access to trades in and around the area? And also, I think a lot of people think they would like to manage a property, but when it comes down to it, they're not really cut out for it. There's not many people who would like to be woken up on Christmas Day and be told by a tenant that there's a leaky pipe in the property and that needs fixing ASAP. And in terms of the law changing regarding property management, in 2019, there was a change in the law which went in the favour of tenants. Landlords couldn't pass on the costs for referencing and credit checks to a tenant. So now landlords will have to bear that cost themselves. And let-only services may charge you anything from £20 to £100 per tenant who is screened, referenced and credit checked. So if it took a estate agent 4 attempts to find you a tenant, that might be anything up to £300 if it was £75 per person. In the past, I've used Open Rent. Open Rent have been excellent. They've got a suite of services that they offer, including referencing overseas. So you could actually use them if you wanted to as a let-only facility yourselves. Moving on to let and fully managed. Don't be fooled by the word fully managed, because at the end of the day, you are the owner of the property and you will still be responsible at the end of the day. So whilst your letting agent will be helping you conform to regulation, you are the owner. It's very much like owning a car and loaning it out to your friend. If anything happens, you are still the owner and ultimately responsible. It's very important you remember that. Fully let agencies normally charge anything between 7 to 15% of the annual rent, and normally for that you get a fairly hands-off service, and they will do all the screening and day-to-day management of that. And one of the things about a managed agency is be very careful not to jump to the first one that you see at the top pages on Google. A friend of mine told me a very horrible story about a estate agent he was using, and apparently she was in the local papers for a variety of things, including fraud. She was looking after a property for an overseas investor, and not only had she taken out a loan against the property, but she was also trying to sell the property as well. After some time, it's come full circle, and she's still in the industry, acting as an estate agent at the moment. So I would say do your due diligence not only on your agency but also on the people they're employing. 1-star reviews are there for a reason. So if you've got any doubts at all, check out those 1-star reviews. The other thing I've often done is I've often rang the tenancy up pretending to be a tenant to see what sort of reception I get. How diligent are they about what sort of tenant I might be looking for a property? Are they really doing what they say they are supposed to be doing? As the UK moves more and more into people living in rented accommodation, and the increase in overseas investors, there's an influx of letting agencies popping up. So it's even more imperative that you take your time when choosing your letting agency. And I think I've got several tips for you. And one of them is about choosing your letting agency. And after all of this time in property, my preference, if I had to choose, would be an agency that is part of a franchise. Primarily, they appear to be greatly motivated, not just with their accountability, but also to help you grow your portfolio. Top tip 2, if you are going for a let-only service, make sure you meet your tenant yourself just before signing on the dotted line. Top tip 3 is be clear about the requirements for your property. If it's a HMO, what does that mean? What does a license mean? And what regulatory things must you adhere to? And I also think if you have got a fully let property out and managed by an estate agency, always stay ahead of the game. Read up on key activities. When's your gas safe certificate due? When do you need to go and do an inspection? Make sure your agency are doing those things. So that's all for today. Next week, I'll be talking to you about how I bought a property using credit cards. Exactly. If you like the videos, please do subscribe and like. Keep the questions coming in, and I'll speak to you soon. Take care. Bye.